2026 has plenty of great survival movies in store, and today I'm going to show you some of the most exciting ones. In this list, you'll find deadly expeditions, terrifying monsters, impossible situations, and characters who will have to fight for their lives at any cost. If you enjoy intense movies that keep you hooked from start to finish, make sure to watch this video all the way to the end, because some of the most interesting projects are still ahead. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is one of the darkest and most unusual survival films of 2026, continuing the legendary 28 Days Later universe. This is not just another zombie horror movie, but a full-scale story about fear, survival, and human nature. The events take place decades after the viral catastrophe, when Britain has become a post-apocalyptic nightmare, where the danger comes not only from the infected, but from people themselves. What makes this film so compelling is not just its atmosphere of horror and constant sense of danger, but the question at its core. What does a person become when civilization finally collapses and fear turns into a new religion? Send Help is one of the most unusual survival films of the year, blending adventure, dark comedy, and a genuine survival thriller. At the center of the story is Linda Little, a quiet employee at a major corporation who has spent years in the background, hoping to finally earn the promotion she deserves. But her plans are shattered when a new boss, Bradley Preston, arrives, a confident career climber who quickly turns her work life upside down. And just as the conflict between them reaches its breaking point, fate literally throws them out of their ordinary lives. Their plane crashes, leaving them as the only survivors stranded on a remote island in the middle of the ocean. This is where the film truly comes to life. While the self-assured office boss proves completely helpless against hunger, fear, and the harsh wilderness, Linda unexpectedly reveals a completely different side of herself. The woman nobody ever took seriously begins finding food, building shelter, and taking control of the situation, turning the struggle for survival into her own proof of strength. Ready or Not 2, Here I Come is the sequel to one of the wildest and most darkly comedic survival horror films of recent years, once again bringing audiences into a world of deadly games where survival becomes the ultimate test of cunning, strength, and composure. At the center of the story is Grace McCallie, the heroine who survived a night-long hunt in the first film and personally wiped out the insane Ladomas family. You would think that after such a nightmare, her life could finally return to normal, but the sequel quickly reveals that survival was only the beginning of her story. As it turns out, by winning the deadly game, Grace broke the rules of something far larger and much older, a secret organization of killers that has maintained its own bloody order for years. Now, alongside her younger sister Faith, she is drawn into a new round of the game, one that is even more dangerous, more ruthless, and far bigger in scale than before. War Machine is a sci-fi action film and survival thriller that combines military drama, science fiction, and intense survival in the spirit of Predator and modern war movies. The story follows a combat engineer from a U.S. Army engineering brigade who survived a devastating ambush in Afghanistan, where he lost not only his entire unit, but also his own brother. Instead of leaving the past behind, he chooses the hardest path possible, attempting to join the elite ranger ranks, believing it's the only way to honor his brother's memory. But this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. During the final stage of training, a small squad under his command heads into the forest for a routine military exercise against a simulated enemy, expecting nothing more than the usual challenges. However, the mission quickly turns into a nightmare when the soldiers encounter a gigantic war machine of unknown origin. From that moment on, the film becomes pure survival. The enemy is neither a man nor an army, but a nearly unstoppable robot built for destruction, one that surpasses them in speed, firepower, and tactical capability. The forest becomes a deadly trap. Communications are cut off, reinforcements are nowhere to be found, and every mistake could cost a life. Apex is a 2026 survival thriller that transforms a story about travel and self-discovery into a tense fight for survival. At the center of the story is Sasha, an experienced mountaineer struggling to cope with a devastating personal tragedy. After the death of her husband, she sets off alone into the remote Australian wilderness. This is where the film begins to play with audience expectations. Along the way, Sasha meets a local man named Ben, who seems friendly and helpful, offering advice and showing her good places to camp. However, it gradually becomes clear that the real danger is not the wilderness itself. Ben turns out to be a man with dark intentions, turning Sasha's journey into a carefully planned, deadly trap. Survival here is built not only around battling thirst, exhaustion, and the harsh environment, but also around a psychological game between hunter and prey. Cold Storage is a 2026 sci-fi survival horror film that taps into one of humanity's most terrifying fears, an invisible infection capable of destroying everything around it. The story begins at a long-forgotten American military facility hidden deep underground. Decades ago, the government sealed away a highly dangerous parasitic fungus there, believing the threat had been permanently contained. But time is working against them. Rising temperatures in the underground levels trigger a mutation, causing the organism to evolve at an alarming rate. The fungus is capable of infecting humans, destroying their bodies, and at the same time taking control of their minds, turning people into both carriers and weapons. At the center of the story are two ordinary self-storage facility workers, Takake and Naomi, who have no idea that their routine shift is about to become a desperate fight for survival. The Bluff is a 2026 adventure survival action film that takes audiences into the dangerous and brutal world of the Caribbean during the age of piracy. The story unfolds in an era when sea routes were controlled by pirates and small islands lived under the constant threat of raids and destruction. A pirate attack becomes more than just the beginning of a conflict. It turns into a personal catastrophe that forces the heroine to confront a past she has spent years hiding, even from those closest to her. The island quickly becomes a battlefield where there are few places left to hide, and danger comes not only from the sea, but also from within the community itself, as fear begins to erode trust between people. The survival element operates on multiple levels, combining the physical struggle against heavily armed pirates with the desperate effort to protect loved ones and endure in a world falling apart around them. They Will Kill You is one of the most unusual survival horror films of 2026, blending dark comedy, intense thriller elements, and a brutal game of survival in the spirit of movies about secret societies and deadly traps. At the center of the story is an ordinary housekeeper who takes a job in a luxurious mansion in New York. Strange house rules, suspicious behavior from the owners, and a constant feeling of being watched slowly turn her new job into a source of fear. Eventually, she realizes that she has accidentally become trapped inside a hidden system connected to disappearances and deadly rituals. This is where the film transforms into a full-fledged survival thriller. It's no longer a story about a mysterious house, but a desperate fight for survival against people who place no value on human life. Escape is difficult, trust is almost impossible, and every attempt to uncover the truth only pulls her deeper into a dangerous and deadly game. Thrash is an intense 2026 survival horror film that combines two classic fears at once: the destructive power of a natural disaster and the deadly threat of ocean predators. The story takes place in a small coastal town, caught directly in the path of a massive hurricane. People prepare to ride out the storm, believing the greatest danger comes from the violent winds and rapidly rising floodwaters. But it quickly becomes clear that the real nightmare is only beginning. The flooding tears through streets, cuts off communication, and turns homes, stores, and basements into deadly traps with no easy escape. And at that exact moment, sharks are swept into the flooded town, carried by powerful currents and breached coastal barriers straight into residential areas. What was supposed to be protection from the ocean becomes a deadly arena. The residents find themselves trapped between a collapsing natural disaster and predators lurking beneath the murky water. Survival becomes the driving force of the film, as every decision could mean the difference between life and death. Normal is an intense 2025 crime thriller starring Bob Odenkirk, whose very presence sets the tone for the film. A man exhausted by violence who wants only one thing: a peaceful life. At the center of the story is former fearless sheriff Ulysses Richardson. After painful personal struggles and professional burnout, he decides to leave his past behind and temporarily transfers to a small town in the American Midwest. At first glance, the place seems almost perfect: quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and crime that appears practically non-existent. Everything begins with a clumsy robbery at a local bank carried out by a pair of incompetent criminals. At first, it seems like a routine case that an experienced sheriff can easily handle. But when Richardson steps in, the situation suddenly spirals into chaos, crossfire, strange coincidences, and people behaving in ways that make no sense. Little by little, he realizes the robbery was only the tip of a much darker story. Soon, the town's hidden secrets begin to surface, and the situation takes a deadly turn as the entire community starts hunting down three people in a desperate attempt to keep the truth from ever reaching the outside world. That's all for today. I hope you found a few movies in this list that you're excited to check out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest movie and TV show releases. And don't forget to let me know in the comments which film you're looking forward to the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.